Coming straight out of Ecamm. This is a town with the Ecamm found. Ecamm fam is the name of the sham. This is a town with the Ecamm found. Ecamm fam is the name of the sham. This is a town with the Ecamm found. This is a town with the Ecamm found. This is a town with the Ecamm found. Ecamm fam is the name of the sham.
Hold it, stop the music!
Ladies and gentlemen.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Ladies and gentlemen. Can I please have your attention?
It's showtime. Are you ready? Are you ready for start time?
Let's find out. Ready, let's go.
Hello everybody, happy Friday and welcome to Let's Learn Ecamm Live. Now the team have let me back again for a second time. I'm filling in for Doc as he's actually away today. So I'm going to be taking you through the Ecamm Live demo session and show you some of the features and the workflows to get you started, especially if you are new to Ecamm. And for those of you who don't know me, my name is Neil Faramond. I am a moderator here at Ecamm, and you may have seen me from time to time answer some questions in the Facebook group. So let's take a quick look at who we have and say a few hellos. Hello to George. Happy Friday to you as well, George. Hey, Roy, thank you so much for joining. And of course, Mr. Moderator is always here as usual. And who else do we have? Wow, so many. Hey, Andy, thanks for joining as well. My goodness me, Mr. Camera Junkie. All right, I can't keep up. There's too many people. Thank you so much for joining today. Right, so as usual, we'll be going through some of the basics for Ecamm. And I just wanted to start off by going into live demo mode and talking about some of the preferences that I typically change, especially when I have a new instance of Ecamm. So let's quickly take a look. To get to preferences, you just go to Command, comma, which is the same on every Mac software. There's a couple of things I'll change. First of all, I'll change in the general settings. I will change this one here, which is the show the camera switcher in the main window. I typically turn that off. I don't like seeing it in the main window. It's a little bit distracting. There is another camera switcher that I'll show you in a second that I typically use. And then the other one is show program window while in other apps. And this is a replica or a visual replica of what you see in the main window here. And it's a little pop-up window that you can move around. You can actually use it as a confidence monitor. You can pop it into your prompter. And if you actually move away from Ecamm, but you have Ecamm running, then that little pop-up window is going to show up. So I just typically disable that as well. In my, let me look, in my video settings, I also change this default source mode from camera to blank. And I'll leave it on camera and I'll show you what happens. So when you want to create a new scene, and we'll talk about scenes and overlays in a second, let me just go over here. And if you look at this, I will create a new empty scene. You will see that it's just basically created a scene with the default camera that I have enabled here in Ecamm. And we get a few questions around this. Why every time I try and create a blank scene do I still see my camera all the time? And it's because of this setting. You can go up here as well to source, and I always change mine to blank. So every time I create a new scene, I get a blank canvas and I'm basically starting from scratch. So those are the couple of sort of default things that I typically change when I start my Ecamm production. So let's talk a little bit about scenes and overlays. So on the left-hand side here in my setup, and mine will look a little bit different to yours. I've just removed some of the windows that we have in Ecamm just to simplify it a little bit. So over here on the left, we have scenes, and in the bottom, we have overlays. So when you think about scenes versus overlays, scenes are like slides in a presentation or scenes in a movie, and they contain or can contain images, text, videos, and different types of graphical visualizations. Now, overlays are the visual elements that are added to scenes. So basically, your scenes are just your workflows and your run of show that you will take your audience through. They will contain different elements, guests, your cameras, screen shares, and things, which we'll be going through in a moment. And then the overlays are basically the components, the visual representations that actually sit in there. So let me go back into live demo mode. And there you are. So let's first of all create a new scene, which we'll just again press the plus button. And I'm going to create one called host. I'll just create a host to start off with. So let's do that. Let me change my source to blank. In fact, let me just go back to my preferences and make that the default, because we don't want to be seeing my face every time we create a new scene. So let's just do this as new host. All right, so I'm going to add a camera to this, which is what you typically would do. So down here in your overlays, you've got a number of different things you can add. We're just going to pick camera to start with. So I'll just hit camera. And as you can see, it's blank at the moment. So I'm going to select which camera I want, and I'm going to select camera A. Now you might be wondering, well, what is camera A and how is that relevant to adding cameras? So camera switcher is your friend when it comes to mapping the different camera sources that you have within your production. And let me explain why that is. If we go up to window and camera switcher, if you click on all sources, this is going to show you everything that you have connected from a camera's perspective. That can be an iPad, an iPhone, a USB-based camera, Osbot, Camlink. In my case, I've got a Decklink Quad 4-port HDMI card with 3 cameras, and showing 3 cameras because it's easier to show you the different elements. And then you've also got, obviously, guests that can come in if you've got interview mode set up on your Pro plan with Ecamm. So these are all the sources that you would see within your production. And on the right-hand side, you'll see this AB tab. And this is basically your camera source mapper. So what this allows me to do is map my various camera sources to a letter. And this is really useful if you have a ton of scenes in your production. You don't want to be going through each one and changing the camera sources, especially if you have multiple cameras. So it's much easier to create this mapping with the various cameras that you've got assigned. Now, as you know, many of us use Camlinks. I used to use them. And the problem with Camlinks is that they're not persistent with regards to what camera is connected to them. So let's say you have 2 or 3 Camlinks, or 2 Camlinks, let's say, in your system. When you reboot your Mac, and this is an OS X thing, it's a Mac thing, not an Ecamm thing, then Camlink A that's maybe connected to a particular USB port won't be the same when you come to look at it in Ecamm. So your cameras could get messed up and switched around. So your sort of main front camera here could now be mapped to a different scene. So the way to get around that is, once you've rebooted your Mac, come into the camera switcher and remap your Camlink sources to the correct letter. And if you create all your scenes and all your overlays with a camera mapping A, B, C, D, and so on, it's much easier then to go in here and just change them as a one-off step. And you can also do this for guests. So as you can see here, if you've got multiple guests coming in, and Ecamm will allow you to have 10 guests on your system, depending on the Mac that you have and the plan, then you can also do the same for your guests. So if you're always creating guest scenes, when these guests come in, you can map them to guest 1, 2, and 3 in your interview mode setting. and then they will be respectfully mapped to a letter as well. So it's much easier and gets less confusing, especially when you're trying to map these. So that's what I've done here. So I'm going to just remove that. You might also notice that we have a lot of windows and icons, around the main window here. So lots of controls, and each of these controls actually can be mapped as well, and so on. And Paul's raised a good point there. If you don't see, oh, it's very small. Sorry, Paul. Let me just bring that up there. If you don't see a camera in All Sources tab, check under the camera menu and make sure they're all included in the switcher. Yeah, that's a good point. I'll show you that right now, what Paul is talking about. So in the camera menu, these are the ones that are included in the switcher. So I went to camera, include in switcher, and you can actually uncheck these. So for example, if you have a MacBook with a built-in FaceTime camera, you might not want to have that. You might not want to have other cameras and things that you've got added. So you can just disable them there. Thank you for that, Paul. I keep forgetting about that. I just have everything turned on and map them accordingly. All right. In your main window as well, you've got all these controls. So each of these controls will map to a menu item. So you've got show and hide the main switcher window, then you've got show and hide overlays and various different things. For me, when I'm building scenes, I like to remove these overlays in the main window. And you can do that by hitting the Command tilde button, which removes them. Or you can go into where is it now? Options, I keep forgetting where it is. Window, sorry, show and hide window controls. So the Command tilde button is the one that's going to show and hide these commands here. And it's just easier to navigate when you're moving around, specifically when you're trying to create scenes. So I'm just going to create a basic host scene within the camera that I've got here. So I've got mine mapped to camera A. You hit this little pen tool and you've got all different ways of changing the look and feel of this camera. If I just zoom in and out of with my mouse wheel, you obviously can zoom in and out of the camera itself. And then you can create different shapes. So by default, it's set to custom at the moment, but you can set it to wide. So you get the same sort of wide aspect ratio, and you can obviously pop the main scene in here like this. Super simple stuff. You'll see as I'm moving the camera around that the blue bars come up, which are basically snapping the element that you're putting into your scene, in this case, the camera overlay, to the center point of your scene. So it makes it much easier to get everything looking nice and tidy. If you want to crop in this image, i.e. you don't want to set it in custom aspect ratio or something like that, if you just want to crop in, if you hit the Option key, you'll notice that the double arrows change at the side of the element. So you can just quickly and neatly just crop in by hitting the Option key to crop into whatever aspect ratio that you want to see. So it makes things a bit easier when you're trying to set up your cameras. So I'll just change mine back. You can also add borders and change the shape of your overlay. So we've got a purple border at the moment. You can change the border width here by hitting this slider. So in changing the border width, and then you can make the rounded corners as well. And with this little icon here, you can actually have certain corners of your overlay actually not rounded. So you can make a shape like that. You can make a shape like that. In fact, you can do whatever you want. In this particular case, I'm just going to keep it like that. Make the corner radius a bit bigger, like that. And then obviously you can change the shape. You can have the classic 4x3, old school TV, square, circle, squircle, which is in between square and circle. I think that was a new word invented by Ken and Glenn, but I'll just keep it to custom and I will just move it out like that. So I'll get it all centered, nice and tidy. Now, another way of creating a camera into your scene, if I just shrink this up a little bit, is that using your handy camera switcher, you can just click a camera from here and just drag it into your scene. And it's actually going to honor the same settings that you've just created with your previous overlay. So if you notice, the border, color, the shape, and the aspect ratio is exactly the same. And then obviously with that, you can change and switch to a different camera. Or if you want to, you can map the camera down here and change it to a guest, for example. So this is how you can easily create and click and drag cameras into your scenes. So I will just close this one up. I will just drag this up again, like that. All right, with respect to overlays, I'll just close this camera or switch it down a second. So with overlays now, we can create different types of visual elements within our scene. So we've just done the camera switcher. Now let me go to this button here, which is a shape overlay. So if I click on this, the shape overlay is exactly what it says. It's a shape. And let's take a look at that. And you can basically change it to a square or a circle again and have anything that you want. I'm going to change mine to a rectangle. And I'm going to create, and this is persistent because I've already been messing around with this before. I'm going to create a fill overlay within this rectangle shape. And I'm going to give it some motion. So let's pick some colors. Let's pick some crazy colors. Let's pick that. And let's pick bright orange. And you can see that we've got different options here for what we want to do. We can have a gradient fill, and you can change the gradient with this little dial box here. So you can see the gradient changing. I particularly like the motion ones, but you can also have a solid color as well. But I'm going to keep it to motion. And then I'm going to click and drag and make this full screen because I want this as my background. But what's happened? Obviously, I've disappeared. And the reason why that is your overlays are based on layers. So anything that is appearing in the top of your list is the one that's going to appear above everything else in that layered structure. So I'm going to bring this this rectangle shape all the way down underneath to my camera A. And there it is. So keep that in mind. Sometimes you'll create things and they'll disappear. And then that's a good reason why, because you may have put them on top of a particular overlay and things like that. I'm just going to pause and go back to my main scene and see if there are any questions. Paul says, a squircle is a shape intermediate between a square and a circle. There's a Wikipedia entry. I wonder who added that. There you go. That's interesting. Let me just see if there's any questions. Paul has already said, and Andy, that if there's a question there, put a Q in front of it. There are no questions so far, but feel free. If there are, I'll try and answer them best I can. All right, let's go back to the host view. All right, so now let's add some text. You might want to know who this person is that's talking on your main scene. So let's go back to some of these other overlays. And in true spirit of my Pro Mouse, it's decided to stop working. So let me just switch it off and switch it back on again. Sorry, Pro Mouse sometimes just stops working. I don't know why. There you go, it's back again. Bit quirky. If anybody's got Pro Mouse and has the same problem where the zoom doesn't work, let me know. I'd like to know how to fix it because I can't get it to be persistent. Let's add some text overlays to start with. Okay, so we've got two types of text overlay. We've got one, which is a text box, that no matter how much text you put in, the text will shrink and maintain the same size of the box, which is called a text to shrink. And then there's another one called dynamic. So I'll show you the difference. There's just the two laid out here are just for your convenience. They're actually the same menu system and you can toggle between the different ones. So just to let you know. So if we click on this button here, you'll see that we've got text box, text to shrink. So that means you'll size the box how you want it. Then any text you put in it will shrink to fit that box. And then we've got dynamic, where the more text you add and the size of the font, the bigger the box gets. So for this particular workflow, I'm just going to create a simple dynamic box and I'm just going to add my name in there. So I'm just going to go Neil Harriman. And And what do I do? Oops, where did my text box go? I didn't add it, did I? Let me do that again, sorry. I didn't press add, so Neil Fireman. And then an option return, and I'm video creator thing. I don't know, let's call it that. And I'll change the text size and color and font within here. So I'll change this to purple because we all like a bit of purple. And I'll change this to white. Now, a handy thing here as well in your font selection is that you can obviously select all fonts. And if you've got a particular favorite font that you use all the time, I'll just pick Impact for the sake of it. You can actually click and drag this into your favorites. So when you go to your favorites, that didn't work. Why did that not work? Let me try that again. Try Helvetica this time. Why is it not adding into my fonts? Okay, that's odd. It worked before. Okay, so you can drag your fonts into the favorites. I'm going to try that again because it did work before. All right, that's weird. Okay, it didn't work for me, but you can add, or you should be able to add your fonts into the favorites list. Why isn't it working tonight? I have no idea. And then if you've got ones that you use frequently for your branding and so on, then you can obviously keep using the same one. So I'm going to use Avia Medium, and I'll just use Bangers for the name. And I'll just change the size of this like that. Okay. And now we've got a little text box, but it's a bit hard to see. So I'm going to add a background on there. So if I go back to the little pen tool and click Edit Text, I'm now going to Edit Background, and we'll make the background a color, and I'll make the color black, like this. Now in here, with your colors, you can also change the opacity of your background. So we'll just make it about 67% for now. We'll pop it in there. And we can put this anywhere we want. I don't like the rounded corners, so let's just change the corner radius to that. And then the text margin here is basically going to put some spacing around the text box itself. So we can just put that there. In fact, I'm going to change that color to a solid black because it's hard to see, considering my background is black as well. So we'll just pop that there for now. But you get the idea. You can put this anywhere you want, pop it in that corner, and make it like that. Let's get rid of this bit of text here. All right, so let me just check if there's any questions. No, okay, great. So I'm now going to create a host and guest scene. So a side-by-side scene, similar to what I did last time. And it's pretty straightforward. So we're going to create a new scene. And we're just going to add a camera overlay. I'm going to shrink this down here. And the good thing is, between scenes, you can actually copy and paste various elements. So I'm just going to grab the text that I've already created, do a copy, paste it into the new scene here, and do a paste. And we'll just put that there like that. And we'll just shrink it down a little bit. Okay. I'm just going to call this host and guest. All right, we can also bring graphics and other elements into here. So I'm just going to go to my video assets here. And I always arrange my assets accordingly. So I've got images, music, videos, and WebM files. And we'll talk about WebM files in a second. But we'll just grab some images, and I'll just grab a background. Let's grab this one that was created from Midjourney. We'll pop that one in there, and we'll move it to the bottom. Now you can actually put your backgrounds into show in background, which means every time you create a scene, it will always have the same background. So let me just do that real quick. So if I create a new scene, you'll see that it's already got the background because the same background is in there. And that's a good way of keeping a consistent look and feel if you have the same backgrounds, but you don't have to. To delete a scene, you just hit the trash can down here at the bottom, which I will do. So let's go back to host and guest. So I've got myself, and I will put my camera in there, camera A. like this. Now, a good bit of housekeeping as well is if you've got everything set up that you want, you can group all of these elements into one particular place. So this little window down here is a grouping function. So if we click on plus, and we'll call this host cam, we can now drag all the respective elements into this. So I'll click on this, I'll click on the camera, let me just pop that in there, like that. So you can see the host cam and the text is all in here. I'm going to change that text because it's difficult to see. Let's make it orange, like that. Okay, so that's easier to see. So you can see now everything is here. And if I hit this little chain button, it's a link button, then all the elements are linked together. So I can easily move them around without having to sort of do each element in turn. I'm just going to unlink those for a second, and I'm just going to add one more little element in here. So I'll just find an image. I'll drag that into here. What a wonderful image that is. Just a little caricature I made as part of the other project I do. And I'll just pop it there like this. I will just zoom in just so I can get it a little bit centered. We're not designing fantastic things today, of course. We're just doing what we can to demonstrate that. So you can see I've got this little graphic element in here now, and I've got my text. So the graphic element sits at the top. I'm going to drag it into the host cam group, link everything together, and there we are. Now, do we have to do all this again, you're asking, if I want to create a guest to my right? Well, the answer is no, because you just click the Option key and drag, and lo and behold, you now have a copy. And you can see the grid is working in your favor. Let me just drag this over here. So now these are perfectly aligned, but you don't want two of me. Nobody wants that. So now we've got a copy of HostCam. I'll just double click here and call this guest. So all I'm doing is changing the name of the folder. And if I use the little eye icon here, I can hide this away so you know which one you're playing with. So we're going to be focusing on the guest one for now. And what I'll do is I'll just remove this camera. In fact, no, I won't. I will just create this camera as guest number 1. Or if you remember our camera switcher, let's just go back to that real quick. I think I have a guest mapped to D. Now there's no guest coming in, but this is just a placeholder. So I'll just map this to camera D, which will be representative of guest number 1, as you can see down here. Now what Doc likes to do, and I like to do the same thing, is if you've got a guest coming in, then it'd be nice to put a picture of that guest as a placeholder. So we'll do that in a second. Let me just change the text of this guest. I will call this guest Martini. And her purpose in life is to eat treats, because Martini is one of my cats. So let's click on that. And then with the power of Ecamm, you're now thinking, well, we've got this graphic. It's not a picture of my cat. Let's change it. So you can just click on this pen tool here and do replace asset. And what replace asset is going to do is keep the same visual constraints in terms of looking at sizing, positioning, and all that. So I'll do replace assets. I'll go into my, where is my desktop? I'll find my demo assets, which is here. I'll go into images. I will find Martini guest circle, which is that. Open that. And as you can see, it's replaced my mug with a picture of my cat. And then the only other thing we want to do now is to get rid of that pen tool, is to find the placeholder of Martini and drag that in. And as you can see, there she is. So I'm going to put this and crop it and just resize a little bit by zooming out as we did before. She's at the top at the moment, so it's easier for me to sort of manipulate. I will just place it there. I will crop in a little bit And then resize and crop, resize and crop. A little bit. And then I will put this picture of Martini under, I think I'll put it under the camera like that. There you go. So there you go. Placeholder for your guest. And it's good practice to set this up so you can have your guest obviously ready to go. Right, just go back to the main camera, see if there's any questions or comments. I do need to teach my cat how to join as a guest. Yes, if I could get her to sit in one place. I know that Marilou's cat sits in the background sometimes. Hey Marilou, thanks for joining. Yes, cats always make streams better. And I just can't keep them in the studio long enough. They're into everything and there's cables everywhere. It's a mess. But I would like to have a cat cam at some point and have them on there. All right, let me just take a quick cue, have a look. No questions. All right, either everybody is fully understanding what's going on or they're watching something else. Either way, let's keep cracking on. All right, so we've talked about a host and guest like that. What else did I want to talk about? Okay, so obviously, as part of your Ecamm production, you might want to share a video or something called an animated overlay or a screen share and things like that. So let's talk about the differences between videos and animated overlays. So let's think that we're going to now create a new scene, which is sharing a video of something. So I will hit the plus button again. And it stopped working again. Right, last time for ProMouse, and then you are done, ProMouse. I don't know what it is. It's something to do with the shortcut key I've got. There it is. It's bonkers. All right, let's create a new scene. ProMouse, I love you, but I don't. Okay, I'm going to just keep the background. In fact, I'm just going to remove that background. Let's just keep it dark. All right, so what happens if I grab a video? I'm going to turn the volume down so it doesn't go crazy. So we've got a video here of Doc and Katie on the flow. And this is just a video that you can download using a downloader on YouTube. And I'm just going to drag it in. As a video. Now we get questions a lot. Why can't I resize, crop, do anything with the video that I've just brought in? Well, because it's been treated as a full screen video. So all you can do is have it set so the video will play all the way through and then go to the next scene once it's finished, which you can, I'll show you if it comes up. Where's my new scene? Oh yeah. I can't remember the name of it now. Shutter Encoder, which is free to download. And Shutter Encoder will allow you to encode the video into a WebM format, which is effectively a HTML file that is then able to be brought in to Ecamm to be changed. Now, I'll show you another way of doing a video, but you won't get any sound. So let's create a new scene, and we'll call this video no sound. So if you noticed before, I actually dragged this video directly into here. Now, if you drag it into your overlays panel and showing current scene, you get asked a question. Do you want to add this as an animated overlay, or do you want to play it with full screen with audio? If I click animated overlay, now you see I can do what I want with it. I can reposition it. I can play around with the size. I can even add a border, as we've done before, corner radius, anything like that that we do to a normal, do a gradient real quick. Anything that we do to a normal asset, you can do with a animated overlay. So it's cool, but it's not going to play any sound. So the only way that you can do the best of both, i.e. have a video that will be resizable, scalable, and play sound, is to convert it into a WebM format. So let's just delete this video. I'm not going to show you how to do that, but you can do that, and we'll just show you in the WebM format. And it's the same video, and if you drag this straight in here, it will now play sound. I'll turn it down. And you can do the same with it, right? So you can add a border, corner radius, and stuff like that. Okay, so that's one way of actually showing a video in your production. And obviously you might not want to, and quite rightly, want to create all these WebM formats of videos that you want to share. So obviously Ecamm has the ability to share screens, parts of screens, applications, and other things. So let's show you some of those elements as well. And these are going to be either a web widget or a screen share or something like that. So let's talk about a web widget first of all. In fact, I don't think I explained the text thing very well. So let me just, before we do web widgets, let me go back to just this new host. In fact, I'll create a new scene. In fact, I'll just move this out of the way so I can get rid of that. I'll just bring some text in and show you what I mean. So let's just grab this text button here. And I've just got some text down here that I've already got. So let's grab that. Okay, and just paste it in. Like that. Control A, text color is white. And then just keep the background black. So this text box is set to shrink to fit. So if I add the text box and I change the size of the text, the box size is never going to change. So if I've got a fixed, rigid area where I want a text box to fit, but I've got a lot of text, then you should use this shrink to fit text box. Because what that will do is no matter how much text you put in and the size of the text, the box size is never going to change, but obviously the text will shrink. The converse of that is the dynamic, which will basically change the size of the text based on the size of the box. Let me just, dynamic, what is going on there? Text margin, and then let's edit some text, make it bigger. So obviously the text box is going to get bigger the more I change the size of the text and so on. So if I go really large with the text, you can see that it's changing the size of the text box. So if you want to have a rigid setup and have a text box with specific constraints in your production, then use the shrink to fit and not dynamic. And therefore you then have your text box the right size that you want, and the text will shrink accordingly. Now you can mess around with the margins, of course, to get it looking right. And obviously as I increase the margin, the text is going to change as well. But you get the idea. And that's how we use the two different sort of main changes between the text boxes and the text sizes and so on. Just check the comments. Dum 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 dum. There is a question here. Let me see if I can answer that. When I sign into Ecamm, it asks me if I want to move it to the applications folder. Yes, it's recommended. So when you unzip the file, it'll be in your downloads folder. So just click and drag it, pop it into the applications folder, or let Ecamm do its thing. It should really sit in the applications folder. You don't want it in your downloads or anywhere like that, or your desktop, but that's why it's asking you that question. So let it do its thing and pop it into the applications folder. All right, web widgets. All right, so let's create a new scene. Let's get rid of that text for a second. In fact, I'll just copy that because I'll need it in a minute. Pop that down there. Let's add a camera. Let's put myself in there for a sec. Let's make it circle. Okay. Let's do that. Pop it there. Let's put a background in. So let's just grab one of our images. Let's have a funky background. Boom. Put that in there like that. Put me down there. Now, I want to share a website. So there's a couple of ways you can do this. You can share it as a screen share. So you can basically share your Chrome window, or you can use something called a web widget. And this web widget is really super easy to use and very handy. It's a browser widget, effectively. So let's click on it. When you get the web widget, you get a couple of options. You get, well, what do you want to call it? So let's call it merch. You know what's coming. And then let's just get rid of that. Oops, where's my delete key gone? And let's paste in the URL of your choice. Now, there's a couple of a couple of options. The web widget options, the width and height, you can leave it at this. It doesn't really matter. Frame rate is the refresh rate of the web page. If you've got lots of video playing on that web page, then maybe keep it to 30 frames per second, but keep it to 15, it's fine. High resolution means that the resolution of the web widget is going to be higher. Keep running in the background, so it'll keep refreshing. So if there's dynamic content that keeps being pulled, this is going to go out and fetch it from the internet. It's just like a browser. And you want to fill the entire frame. So no, I don't want to do that right now. Let's just add this web widget overlay. And there you have Ecamm's merch site. That's resizable. You can make borders. You can do all the things that we know and love with Ecamm by simply messing around with the sizing. Now you'll notice some controls on here. So first off, get the web widget positioned to where you want it to be in your production. And then down at the bottom, you've got a toggle. When it's toggled to the left, it enables you to move and reposition the web widget as I've just shown you. If you move it to the right, whoops, where's it gone? If you move it to the right, it then becomes a browser. So you can scroll, you can click on images. I want one of these t-shirts. In fact, every time I look at this website, I want to buy more things. It's not good. So you can see, you get there. Oops, who's that guy? Get rid of him. Paul, looking wonderful there, as you can see. So you can see that it's basically a fully fledged browser. So if I want to click on one of these images or a t-shirt, I'm not going to buy a t-shirt here right now, but you get the idea. So this is a great way of sharing a website, and customers that I work with, they love this because it's a great way of showing their website to their clients if they want to. And then the other little button here is the refresh button. So if the website's not loading for whatever reason, you have to refresh it. Now, the only caveat to this is it doesn't keep cookies and things like that. So if you have a website that you need to log into and things like that, you will have to log into it each time you switch to the particular scene. So that's the only caveat with that. But 90% of the other websites that don't require you to log in are fine. And as soon as you switch to the scene, it works a treat. So let's do web widget. Right, something else that you may want to do is share a part of your screen. So I will duplicate this scene. And to duplicate a scene in Ecamm, it's super easy. It's this button down here. And you click on duplicate. And I'm now going to call this screen share. Oops. I will delete the web widget. No more merch for you today. And I will delete the overlay. So now we'll click on this button down here, which looks like a little monitor, and this is your screen share. Now you've got many options with this. and I'll show you what they are. Click on the pen tool. And depending on how many monitors you have in your system, you can actually share the main monitor, which is the other one. You can share this monitor, which I'm going to do right now, or the third monitor, which is my prompter. I'll show you the prompter sharing in a second, but let's just do this secondary display. You also have the option down here, as you can see, that if there's current applications running, you can also share various parts of that. So we've got Ecamm Live Beta, so I could actually just share the comments and reactions window that I've got open here. So let's just do that first. Again, because it's an overlay, you can do all kinds of things with it. I'm going to remove the corner radius and stuff like that. The shape, I'll do custom. And then I will just click and drag this to here. I know Adrian does this quite a lot when he's doing his shows, but now you can see that you can share a part of your Ecamm production. So if you actually want to show somebody something, because as you can see in live demo mode, you're not going to see all the Ecamm bells and whistles. So obviously we'll be able to do that. And we have a question that's come in from Gretchen. And Gretchen says, if I use a specific website in each live that I do, is it possible to create it once and then reuse it in each show, or do you need to create a new link? No. So if it's the same website, just reuse it. It was only because if you have a website that you need to log into, you'll just need to log into it. But I do that all the time. You know, if you're sharing a particular website of your choice and you want to have it in your live streams, then no, just copy and paste it, reuse it. It's no problem. It works. It works fine. So hopefully that answers your question. What was I doing? Oh yeah, screen share. Okay, so you can obviously share a portion of your screen. You can also share something else. So let's just share the entire secondary display, which is this guy. So the only thing you're going to see on this display here is my images. So my images folder. So, you know, I'm moving this around here, and this is actually sharing my entire screen. So you have lots of options within Ecamm to share different parts of the screen, the whole screen, and everything else. The other thing that I did recently, let me just grab up my Chrome browser. I had a brain freeze then for a second. Let me just move this out of the way over here. Let me share this. So the other thing I did is, obviously you can create many different types of overlays and widgets and stuff like that. So I actually created a prompter widget, which is using exactly what we've talked about here. So I created a transparent image, which is of the Elgato prompter. And then I'm sharing my Elgato screen, because it's a screen, in the same way that I've just shared my main screen. So I'll just show you what it looks like real quick, just for giggles. So this is the prompter. So this is an image of the prompter. And I've actually got two screen shares. I've got, well, it's the same screen share, but it's oriented a different way. So as you can see, it's just emulating what a prompter looks like. So it's a cool way of saying, well, here's my prompter and this is what I have in my prompter. And again, just using Ecamm made it so simple for me to create two screen share overlays, reverse this one. I put a little blur on the bottom, and there you have a little prompter. So it's cool. So if you want to show people what your prompter is, that's fine. And if you want this overlay that I created, this prompter PNG file, then leave a comment, send me a link on YouTube or Instagram or whatever, and I'll get it to you some way. It's super easy. Anyway, I just thought I'd show you that because, again, using the power of Ecamm, you can just create any type of overlay that you want, and you can just then add your screen share overlay. It's just a cooler way of presenting some of your material, especially if you're sharing things in prompters and stuff like that. All right, let me just bring Google back. Bring this little thing over here. All right, so let's think. Do we have any other questions at the moment? No, we don't. All right, I will go on to the next topic. Yeah, again, with Ecamm, Paul, I mean, I couldn't do it without it. So again, couple of overlays and a PNG file, and there you go. Let's create a comments scene. So you can see here that I'm bringing in comments from Ecamm, from YouTube. But as you know, Ecamm supports many different destinations for bringing in comments. So things like Instagram and Facebook. Well, that's going away soon. But Instagram and Twitter and YouTube and all that kind of stuff. So people like to create their own scene with overlays associated with the comments. So let's create a comments scene as well. So let's just create that. I will create a new camera. Where'd it go? Oh, I created the wrong camera. Let's get rid of that. Sorry, let me just add my camera. Camera A. Hey, Dan. No worries. All right, so here we have another camera. I'll put in another background. Let's pick a background of fun choice. Let's do this one. Is this going to come in? Yeah, should do. Okay. Mid-Journey. I love it. All right, another background. Bring it in there. I'm not going to mess around with this too much. Just put a little border. Corner radius. And then we have something called in the overlays menu, add placeholder comment overlay. And this is a placeholder for getting your comments how you want them to look. So right now, I'm going to mess around with this and just have it like this. So let's change a couple of things on here real quick. Let's change the viewer name to be a darker color because it is really hard to see on there. And then in the background, in fact, that's not the easiest to see as well. It's got a little shadow effect, so let's disable that. And then the background, I think, is set to a blur. And you can see I'm blurring the background out a little bit, so it makes it easier for the text to be seen. And I'll just adjust the text margin. And I'll click OK. And I'll make the text much bigger than that. I went the right way with the slider. There you go. All right, so now you can see that I've got my viewer name and the placeholder. So let me just hide that with the little eye icon. And then when I bring in Dan's comment, I'm hoping that it looks the same as I've just edited. So it's a great way of just putting in your comments in a nice way. And the way that it's coming in and out is governed by a transition. And you can see here that we've got a number of different transitions for bringing in elements. These transitions apply to any overlay that you can adjust. So a screen share, text, WebM, comments, all kinds of stuff. I'm going to have this to fly in from the left. I like to keep animations to a minimum. And let's just remove that one like that. So it flies in from the left. I should have said flying from the right. I always get that wrong. That's what happens when you drive on the wrong side of the road. UK friends joke there. All right, so as you can see, it's now flying in from the right-hand side. Anyway, you get the idea. Now, these comments will stay on the screen for eternity unless you change a preference in your preferences. So if you remember, preferences is Command, comma. And if we go to, where is comments? I think it's in the stream. I might be wrong though. I can never find it because I never change it. Oh, there you go. So here, in your general tab, automatically hide comment overlays after 15 seconds. So we'll click on that. In fact, we'll just make it 10 seconds. So as soon as you bring a comment in, if you don't want the comments to stay all the time, I always forget to switch the comments off as much as I like the comments. That comment will disappear after 10 seconds. So let me think what else we had here. So groups and folders. Okay. So one other trick, find the Ecamm shortcuts. Yes, that's a great resource, actually, Paul. I keep forgetting it. I should just have a little crib sheet in front of me because there's so many shortcuts that people can use and take advantage of. And if you've got a Stream Deck, as I have, then this is how I flip between, you know, live demo mode and the scene and things like that. So just to let you know, Stream Deck is your friend as well. And you can see a lot of the shortcuts listed here already, which is great. something that has been added. I think I can talk about beta stuff, right? Because I'm using the beta right now. Something's been added to the beta recently as regarding overlays is the ability to show the vertical safe zone if you're going live. So you click on this window here, options, show vertical safe zone, and that now gives you a nice grayed out element. So keeping you in the center, especially if you are doing your IG lives or YouTube short streaming things that are going on at the moment, because everybody seems to be doing that. So again, another fantastic way of showing these overlays and keeping you front and center when you are doing your vertical stuff. Another thing that you can do within your scenes is there's a button down here for organization. So this one is groups. So with respect to overlays, like I mentioned before, you can also group your scenes. So if you have a number of scenes for different parts of your broadcast, then you can group everything into these various groups. So I'm just dragging these scenes in here, as you can see, and I'm just going to call it, test group. But one other cool thing is that you've got the option to have something called a automatic group. And what that does is it will automatically switch between scenes. Yeah, that's a good point. So that will be in the, oh, look at that color. See, I change it one place and I forget to change it somewhere else. Sorry, Paul. Let me make you nice and bright. You've disappeared. Okay, let's bring you back in. Yeah, so the overlay that you've just seen for Instagram will be in the proper version 4.2 when it comes out. I used to keep calling it GA. So let's create a new automation group. Let's just call it, auto switch. And I will just drag this all the way up here so you can see it a bit better. Just close these up a little bit and drag that out. Where's my scene gone? Okay, so in my auto switch group, I can do a couple of things. So it's easy to show you with cameras. So I'll just pop in these cameras into the auto switch group here. So I've got 3 cameras at the moment, which are all scenes. This is the main host one. Where's my camera gone? I've lost my test group. There it is, main cam. I'll pop that in there as well. So this is the one. That's the main one here. Okay, so we've got the main camera, we've got the ZV1 here, and then there's another camera over there. So the auto switch is really cool because it allows you to switch between scenes automatically. So if you've got like lots of cameras that you want to just mess around with and switch between, or you've got cycling scenes that you want to share with people, you can put them in this auto switch group and you have a couple of configurable parameters. So you click on here and you've got a couple of options. What do you want it to do? So do you want it to do advance to next scene, or do you want it to be random? So we'll keep it advance to next scene. Do you want it to switch between each scene on a fixed interval, or do you want it to have a random time range? We'll do a random time range. We'll do between 3 and 8 seconds. And then what kind of transition? Do you want a wipe? Do you want a slow transition, cross zoom? We'll just do a cross dissolve. And when you hit the play button up here, and you can do this from a keyboard shortcut, you can do it from your Stream Deck, then what's going to happen is it's going to switch between everything that's in that automatic group. So as I mentioned, there's cameras that I've got in here, but these could be scenes, these could be like a presentation, anything like that. It just gives you some flexibility for when you're actually talking and when you don't want to be switching scenes manually. It's almost like having a little remote producer kicking around there, switching scenes for you. So again, another easy tip that you can use these types of grouping for. And from an organization perspective, speaking of grouping and folders, it's always good practice to, in my experience anyway, have a profile for a particular show. So if you have multiple shows, if you have maybe an audio podcast that has a certain set of scenes in it, if you have a video live stream that you have a dedicated set of scenes, or if you're doing shows for other people, if you're a remote producer, whatever it might be, then it's really good practice to keep your things organized in profiles. So what is a profile? Well, a profile keeps probably 85% of everything in terms of settings and configuration in the in your Ecamm production. So it will keep the screen resolution, it will keep the stream size. It doesn't keep the destinations, so you will have to add your destinations if you are switching between profiles. But if I go into the profiles menu here at the top, you can see that there's a lot of profiles that I have here. These are the recent profiles. And to share and create new, I can't create a new blank profile now because I'm live, but you can export a current profile and save this and give it to somebody else and they can tweak it. And you can create obviously new blank profiles, or you can duplicate an existing one. And then once you've duplicated that, you can then modify and change it, rename it, and so on. So it's just a good form of housekeeping to make sure that everything is in order, is all tidy, and you don't get or end up with an absolute ton of scenes and overlays and all kinds of things. And Mr. Camera Junkie, Luis, you are exactly correct. Profiles are key. They are indeed. All right. Let me check my notes to see what else I was going to talk about. I know we're at the top of the hour, so we've already gone for an hour. The only thing I was going to mention is, actually, I think I've gone through everything that I was going to mention. So let me go to out of live demo mode for a second and just go through and see if there are any sort of final questions and points. I don't think there are any questions at the moment. I give it a couple of minutes, I guess, Paul, because we're at the top of the hour and I think I've gone through everything that I wanted to go through today. But if there are any burning questions that anybody has, then feel free to shout now. Or if not, I will let you get back to your afternoons and evenings. And I think normal service will be resumed next week when Doc will be back with us. And yeah, we'll see from there. Let's see. There's some more comments coming in. A thumbs up. Oh, well, thank you very much. All right. Well, if there's nothing else. Oh, thank you, Maggie. No problem. Mapping. Yes. It's just an easy way of saying how these things are mapped. Ah, there won't be a demo next week. Oh, all right. Thanks for letting us know, Paul. No worries. All right. Well, normal service won't be resumed next week, but maybe the week after. Let's put it that way. All right. Well, if there's no other questions or comments, then I will try and do my end screen and bid you a fond farewell. And thank you for allowing me to go through this thing with you for at least an hour. And I appreciate all your comments, kind words, and being here. And I'll see you sometime soon. Take it easy, and thanks for watching.
Come on.